Am I looking at you or?
Yeah, either or. It looks you looks like the alignment's pretty good, so it
Okay.
looks pretty good. Yeah. Tika Sumpter, you co-star in Bessie as Lucille, who is the lover of blues singer Bessie Smith. How did the opportunity come about to play this role?
Well, it came to my manager and agent, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, you have to read the script." And I read it, and then I saw who wrote it, who rewrote it, which was Dee Rees, and I was like, "Oh my God, Pariah! I have to work with her. She's just so talented." And then when I heard that Miss Queen Latifah was playing Bessie, this blues singer, I was like, okay, what do I have to do to get in to play this role? Do whatever we have to do. And they were like, well, you have to go in. They want to see you. And when I went into HBO and I went and I saw Dee Rees there, and another producer, Shelby Stone, was there, and I went in with the full get up, like wanting this role because I knew that the project would be special. And as it turned out for me, I'm so proud of every single piece of this film, to be quite honest. And I'm just glad that I have no ego. If I need to go in and somebody needs to see me and see what I can do, I'm there. So I did it, and I got to be in a great film.
Yeah, this is Dee Reese's first film since Pariah. What was it like working with her on this one?
Man, working with Dee Rees was an absolute blessing, and just watching her work. She's such an actor's director. She allows you to collaborate, and she creates such a space where you feel comfortable enough to bring your ideas forth, or just to listen to her. There's no ego, but she knows what the intentions are. She has a very clear vision, and to collaborate with somebody like that makes you feel more confident as an actor. Like, okay, so you know what you want, and then to bring in your spices and to put that in the pot, it's pretty fantastic. She set the tone of just a beautiful synergistic just environment, to work in. And with so many women on set, you would think it would be a little crazy, but it was beautiful, and there were no egos. And her and Queen Latifah, they both set the tone.
Now, Lucille's relationship with Bessie is fairly complex because she basically has to share her with Bessie's husband Jack, who's played by Michael Kenneth Williams, and they're all involved in that sort of relationship together in a way. What do you think makes Lucille stay in that kind of sort of unconventional situation?
Right. Well, in this piece, Lucille was there before, Jack, but Lucille is, I think, made up of pieces of a lot of people in Bessie's real life, but in the environment that we were in, which was on in the movie, I think, everybody has someone that they love so much that they always thought, okay, maybe today she will see that I'm just enough, for her, and I think, Lucille was there no matter what. Like, she didn't care if she was a singer, she didn't care if she was a maid, like, she just wanted Bessie. She just wanted a family. And, I think it was that thought, the thoughts of, okay, maybe today she will see that I'm enough for her. You know what I mean? And I think it was unconventional. And after a while, you have to figure out, what's more important, you basically dying in a relationship, or the relationship, or leaving. You have to save yourself. And I think at the end, Lucille realized, it was never going to be enough for her, for Bessie at this point, and what I love about Lucille is she's just kind of this ride or die chick, this girl who loved her regardless of the excess in Bessie's life, and still held on, and still was there when people were fighting over her, and just wanted to love on her, a home for her to be able to be herself, regardless of what's going on in her life. So I think there was a deep love, a deep friendship, and I think those are the things that made Lucille kind of hold on, even though it was not the normal relationship, you know, that people are involved with.
You've appeared in a number of music-themed projects in recent years. You know, you were in Get On Up, which was the story of James Brown, and Sparkle with, of course, the late, great Whitney Houston. Has music always been a big part of your life and career?
Yeah, I mean, I actually started singing before I started acting. It's just acting kind of worked out first. And I was actually in a small girl group, and, you know, yeah, and my mom, you know, she was accepted into the Lincoln Center some academy there to sing opera, you know, when she was younger, and she taught my sisters how to sing, and she didn't know I could sing until later on. And I mean, I think music has just always been in my life, you know, and it just happens that all these projects with music involved have come to me, and I've been, you know, just connected with it. You know, I love music. Music is it runs through my veins, you know, and so especially blues and anything from the 60s and things like that. So these projects have just kind of landed at my feet, and I've been definitely captivated by all of them. And not that I was like, oh, I just want to do music stuff, you know, but it's just stuff that just kind of been running through my veins since forever. So yeah, and I'm grateful for it, you know.
Did you especially relate to these kinds of stories, you know, about James Brown and about Bessie Smith, you know, being, you know, a performer yourself?
Um, yeah, I mean, minus the over drinking and minus the drugs. Yeah, I mean, I think what people see in these artists are themselves. You know what I mean? People who have passion about life and about the things they love, you know, and especially about music. I haven't met one person who could say they don't like music ever, you know, and I think music connects everybody because it's a story. It's stories about love. It's stories about careers. It's stories about being hurt. I mean, it's just stories about life. And I think, you know, people connect with that, you know, and I think artists connect with that. And I think artists are here to tell stories, and those stories are for the people, and then the people get it. They relate to them in whichever way pertains to their lives. So I think it's just something that connects people in general.
Bessie Smith was, you know, a musical pioneer, especially for black performers. And you mentioned that, you know, you've liked, you know, blues and that kind of stuff before. Were you familiar with this story, or, you know, with Bessie Smith before, you know, you took on this role?
No, I was not familiar with Bessie Smith. Unfortunately, I actually had to sing a song for an audition, and they asked me to use a Bessie Smith song way before this happened, and I finally connected those two together, and I'm like, oh my God, Bessie Smith runs through the culture. Her music filters through why people are doing what they're doing now, like singing wise. I mean, it's a fabric of music. Rock and roll is based on blues. You know what I mean? I feel like everything has sprung from blues. And yeah. So I don't know. Wait, what was the original question? I feel like I lost something somewhere.
Oh no, I was just wondering if you were, you know, familiar with Bessie Smith and her music.
Sorry. Yeah. So no, I wasn't familiar. So this was just kind of an education for me, you know, of figuring out Bessie and figuring out what she sang about. And she was a feisty one, you know, she was bold, and she was just so robust, you know, and beautiful, and in her music. And yeah, so it was an education for me.
What kind of insights did you take away? Did you learn from this, you know, film about that period in American history and in music history that maybe, you know, surprised you, or you didn't know before?
What did I take away? I think what I took away from Bessie, I mean, and it was just like, it was tough, not just for women, but women of color, you know what I mean? And just people of color during that time. So these women had to not only be singers, they couldn't just be artists, they had to be business women. They had to write their own music. They had to be a one-man show. And so it's like, I have nothing to complain about, because they walked on anyway. They killed it anyway. They were like, oh, okay, this is what I'm given to work with. Okay, I'm gonna rub two dimes together and I'm gonna make millions. And I'm gonna be one of the first women to sell over 1 million records during that time, which was like crazy. And not only that, what I loved about Bessie is, you know, the Black community is the community that really made her flourish. You know what I mean? And she wasn't really worried about mainstream. You know what I mean? These are the people who made her into a super famous, you know, Bessie Smith of the blues, whether, you know, because at that time it was the Chitlin circuit. And those are the people who like raised her up and made her popular. And then mainstream came along and they were like, whoa, who is this amazing singer? And it was like, what I loved about her is she remained herself. She said, this is who I am. You take it or leave it. And so I feel like there's so many different things I've pulled away from her. It's like a case of, you know, whether it's sexism, whether it's any of those isms, walk on anyway. Continue to be yourself anyway. Do you anyway. And I have nothing to complain about because so many women who were before me did it anyway. And so I think I pulled walking on anyway, regardless of what I face, whatever, you know, whatever mountains I face that get in my way, to keep going, you know, and to really just be great in my talent. Don't look to the left, don't look to the right, but just walk in my lane. You know what I mean? And I feel like with Bessie, like everything's possible, you know, everything is possible, you know, and I just love that she stayed true to herself. She really did. And during that time of where you could be locked up, you could be thrown in jail for holding hands with a woman, you know, the songs she sang, you know, especially in that tent revival, she basically was talking about how to make love to your man, you know, so she's telling all these women, like, this is number one, this is what you do first, you know, and it was like, that was a fight, that was definitely hot during that time, you know, so I feel like there's so many things I pulled from her in this film.
And having taken part in these different films that cover such a range of music history over the 20th century, you know, Bessie Smith's blues in the 20s and 30s, you know, James Brown's rock and funk, and, you know, the Motown era and Sparkle, you know, have you found that, you know, taking part in these kinds of projects has sort of influenced or expanded your own personal, you know, musical interests and style?
It expanded my musical interest and style. I was always a fan of the blues, first and foremost. You know what I mean? I was always a fan of the blues, and I was always a fan of the 60s. And I feel like the 60s derived from the blues. You know what I mean? And of course, I mean, I think the dancing, the way they dressed, I think everything has influenced me from every single, you know, from every single movie that I've been in, that in regards to like James Brown and Sparkle and now Bessie, I feel like it's influenced me in a way where I'm like, wow, these people, we have style. Makes me even more confident, not only that, but proud of heritage and of culture and of the influences that this music has infiltrated into the masses, even if they don't know it, you know, and especially in Europe, like they're huge on this music because it's influenced the world. Music travels. That's the amazing thing. And so I think it's influenced me, you know, even more, and it's just made me even more proud, even though I knew of the music because my parents were such music heads. This was their music, especially during the Motown era. Like my mom went to every concert, you know, and it's just something that's in my blood, and it just makes me even more proud. So yeah, I think the more I do these films, the more I am more grateful for it.
To rewind a bit, you know, one of your breakthrough roles in your career was on One Life to Live, where you played the role of Layla Williamson for several years. With the amount of fast-paced work that goes into the production of a soap opera, you know, would you say that kind of shaped you as an actor over your years on that show?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my One Life to Live was one of my first jobs. So I was so grateful. It was one of my first consistent, like from then on, it was like 4 years of work, you know? And so, yeah, I think for any newer actor, because I felt like I was so green during that time. I was new, you know? All I knew was classes. I didn't really know the work, like, okay, now I'm working, you know? And so for the most part, and, you know, I feel like it sets you up to understand what work life is really about, you know, but even more so because it's like on 10,000 energy drinks, because we do a whole script a day, which is not normal for a movie nor a TV show. So, you know, I think it gave me legs, you know what I mean? It made me understand blocking more. It made me understand the foundations of acting, you know, put into work, you know what I mean? It's not just like, you know, you can train and train and train, but if you never work, you don't really know what it's really like. So I feel like it's a definite training ground for new actors. And I feel like after that, I literally said, if I can do this, I can do anything. So I really do feel that way. It gave me legs, and it made me definitely understand being on set more.
And on that show, you know, you were actually part of kind of a groundbreaking storyline. You know, a gay romance between, you know, Officer Fish and Kyle Lewis. You know, and at the time, you know, a major same-sex love story was still mostly uncharted territory for soaps. What was it like being part of that storyline? What was that experience? You know, what kind of feedback did you get?
It's so crazy because, again, I was in the middle of a same set, like I was in the middle of like a triangle of like, yeah, of someone who loved the other sex again. So that's funny that it's full circle. But to be part of that, you know, I think it was pretty gutsy of ABC to say, you know what, we're going to do this, you know, and the writers of the show and the producers of the show at that time. You don't realize it when you're in it. You're just like, wow, I haven't seen this story, you know, before on daytime. I'm just proud that I was a part of something that was pretty bold to do during that time, and especially for daytime television. You know, it's way different for prime time. So it was nice to be a part of the Officer Fish story, and just to understand where somebody else is coming from, and you know, to have a character who was, again, in love with somebody, but still loved him regardless of him loving someone else, and still there as a friend, you know, to really understand him. And even though she was hurt in the process, but, you know, it made me proud to be part of something like that.
There's an interesting project you've got coming up that I've read about. You know, it's called, you know, Southside with You, where you actually play a young Michelle Obama on her first date with Barack, and you're also actually producing that. I'm not sure how much you're able to talk about it at this point, but what made you interested in tackling that story?
Well, the project came to me and I was just like, whoa. And at the time it was only a synopsis, but it was so beautifully written, just a love story. Like what was, and then the perspective of the before, not what we see now, but why does he look at her like that? What was that conversation like now? Because everybody's like, if you think about them as the presidential couple, it's like, you've never seen somebody so intimate, the way they look at each other, the way he touches her, the way they hug. And I think they definitely set a tone for how we want to interact with our, you know, husbands and boyfriends and lovers. It's like, whoa, what is that? Because I want that, you know, or just even just wanting that, you know what I mean? And so I just thought it was interesting. And and the writer, who's fantastic, his name is Richard Taney, and the way he came at it, just the story is just beautiful. And I just wanted to tell a beautiful love story about these two great people. And I don't even know if they knew at the time that they knew they were going to do something great, but I don't know if they knew that they were going to do that. You know what I mean? And so I'm just excited to tell that date story, and I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be loving, and I think it's going to be smart. You know, it's so well written. So you know, it's like showing your baby to the world. It's scary, and at the same time, it's so exciting, you know, because you want people to love it and you want the president and the first lady to love it. But all I can do is what I can do, and what I know how to do is to focus and work really hard and just make sure we tell a great story, and hopefully everybody will love it.
Well, I want to, congratulate you again on Bessie. That's, on HBO. It aired on HBO. Should be on HBO Go, and, get HBO Now and available anywhere to watch. And best of luck with Southside with you. It was a pleasure having you today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for bearing with me in my technical difficulties.
Oh, it was no problem. It was my pleasure.
All right. Have a good one.